Okay, good morning. Today's December 12th. Supposed to be a big event taking place in Washington, D.C. today to further the Stop the Steal. The crowd's expected to be maybe bigger than the last time we were out last month. We'll see how it all goes. But today I would like to review again, this will be the third video in relation to voter fraud taking place across our country and arrests that are being made that no one's talking about in the social media, the news, none of the networks, none of the talking heads are saying anything at all about the arrests that are being made in the 2020 time, nor all the prior fraud. But further study and detail the things have kind of like given us an eye-opener. Let's just take a quick look at some of the things that are going on. Some of these cases here are related to matters that are taking place right now throughout November, and they're still pending going into December, with people being arrested and charged with voter fraud. Right here we have Southern Carolinas, California, I'm sorry. This was on November 17th this year. Voter fraud taking place, 2 charged with voter fraud in Southern California. Then we go, it gets good. Hardin County makes arrest in voter fraud, authorities say. This is November 7th, just last month. Taking place in relating to the presidential elections, this 2020 election. Right here, Limestone County social worker charged. This is November 6th of last month. 134 felony counts involving election fraud with the 2020 elections going on this year. As one of the bigger cases right here, this is November 18th, mid last month. 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications filed by Pear and Hawthorne election. I mean, you know, this is all just this recent election, and just pay attention though, because it gets really interesting. Pear, charged with voter fraud, allegedly submitted thousands of fraudulent applications on behalf of homeless people. This took place November 17th. That these people were charged here. Literally thousands of fraudulent applications being filed of homeless people. Right here, obtained 8,000 mail ballots for non-existent or deceased persons. 8,000. So, and this was in California. Okay, this is one that took place in California. This recent 2020 election going on. I'm just saying, with all the talking heads, and we see Facebook, you know, popping up all these things that the elections are very secure, they have in place all these things to prevent fraud, no fraud's going on, that's all we hear. But yet, there's literally multiple cases and people being arrested for voter fraud, and as we can see, involving thousands of fraudulent ballots within multiple states, of which are the swing states, where arrests have been made. Arrests have been made in November for people committing voter fraud in the 2020 elections. No one's talking about this on the news. It's like this is happening, but nobody wants to talk about it's happening. And they're denying it. They're in total denial on the news. And there's a reason for that. We're going to get to that in this video as well. When we look here, right here is another Texas social worker charged with 134 counts involving voter fraud. This is November 6th of this year, involved in a presidential election 2020. Another one here, you know, this is another one here. You know, multiple false ballots. Applicants for 67 residents without their signatures. You know, just filling out mail-in ballots without signatures and what have you. Just you know, abandoned buildings, whatever. They're registering themselves. It's Democrats. Now here, Carlton mayor candidate jailed on 109 felony counts in vote fraud case. Okay, this one here goes back a little further to October of 2020. And the reason why we're looking back is because who's involved here? It was 25 counts of unlawful possession of ballots. So if we wonder where all these ballots come from, this case kind of gives an idea to understand. This is back in October. So understand, these people had started printing and making counterfeit ballots back in October. People were being caught, and this guy here, who's a Muslim, Muhammad 39, faces 25 counts of unlawful possession of ballots. Okay, what were they doing with those ballots? They were replicating these ballots. They were filling out these ballots for like abandoned properties, deceased people in convalescent centers, old folk homes, people who are like paralyzed or whatever, anything they could find. They were getting the sources of information from local county officials involved with the Democratic Party through like Social Security disability, Medicaid applications. All the information's online in these databases for them to get the name, Social Security number, what have you, to fill out a voter registration form and get that person sent the ballot. Deceased people, like they say, dead people, recently died who haven't been registered yet in the system, that they could use to track literally tens of thousands within the states, and they're doing this. This is what they were doing, and as we can see, I wanted to bring up, this is not last month, but this was in October of 2020, just to show how long back, October, like the following month, they were already preparing to do this. They started doing this the month before with collecting ballots and fraudulently making ballots, and some of them were being caught in October, but yet, like I say, the talking heads on the news and what we see with Facebook and we hear about with YouTube and we hear on Twitter, all these people talking about that these are false allegations, not happening. But yet, this is going on, 2020, multiple arrests taking place involving voter fraud. Right here, District Attorney, November 17, 2020, pair charged with voter fraud. This, again, related to the presidential election. Now, another thing here is interesting, which I want to get to. When we look at here, this is the Heritage Foundation records. These go back from 2014 forward. Some cases all the way back to as far as 2008 forward. Okay, and the funny thing about, like, we have for most of these cases here, like you see, criminal convictions, proven instances of voter fraud. Some, like the proven instances of voter fraud, go back to 2008. The 1,125 convictions, they go from 2014 and 16. And then very few so far, they don't count yet, the ones we just looked at for 2020 haven't been recorded yet. But as we can see already, we're in the well over 20 people, more than 20 people. Actually, when I look online, I could find already arrest of near 50 people across the country in voter fraud relating to the 2020 presidential election. And where the matters, when looked at, account for literally thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of fraudulent votes being cast within these swing states by these people who are busted. Now, the reason why I want to bring it here and look at this, because if you go, and I'm going to include links to this so you can see, like, let's take an instance here. When we click on a state, not only does it tells us who was involved, what their conviction was, and what they were doing. And as we can see here, there's already one that, I don't know if you can see that, Randy Allen Jumper, criminal conviction, fraudulent use of absentee ballots, duplicate voting. This one here is from 2020. 2020, this is the first one that's being recorded for the 2020 election already on the Heritage site for voter fraud. So as we can see, there is major voter fraud that has always been taking place. And it's getting progressively as you look throughout the years. Like you look here, you can see 2016 is where most of these, in 2019, but most of these are 2016 down to 2014. Literally 2 pages just in that one state. Go back to 2009 going forward. Okay, and I mean, it's 2 pages full of people convicted for voter fraud just in the state right here of Arizona. So if we were to look at like Michigan, we can see again too, like here, all the way back 2016 presidential, 2015, 2014. These people have now the reason I'm pointing this out is because what you got to understand, like we're looking right here, right here is Pennsylvania. Again, many, I mean literally 2 pages in almost every state. There's like 2 pages of convicted people committing voter fraud in every election in these swing states. It's just amazing. And the thing, what I say, like when I point out to you, that you can look at these, this gives you the name, this gives you, so you can do the research. And I'm going to tell you right now why I'm bringing this up again, and I'll include links. If you do the research on these people within all the multiple states of what it shows here in this map, when you do the research, no joke, 99% of the people involved in all voter fraud within the elections from 2008 forward to date are freaking Democrats. They're Democrats. The Democratic Party has been committing fraud in elections. I said this in my first video. Goes all the way back to like 1854. Since they formed the Democratic Party, they've been nothing but fraudulently corrupting elections. Okay, but now, like I say, today, when you look at the modern, recent, just from, say, 2016 forward, all accounts of voter fraud, but maybe several of what's funny, it's funny too, I found several that involved Republicans. But the funny thing about it is when you look into those Republicans, as I pointed out in my prior video, where they try to claim Republicans are committing voter fraud, which is only like several. But those several, if you dig into the background of who these people are, well, you see, they're called rhinos. These were people who were previously long-standing Democrats who recently in like 2016 joined the Republican Party for some reason, obviously to infiltrate, because they have a long history of being voting Democrat, and then even after being busted now and going, they're back in the Democratic Party. So these were just infiltrator rhinos. They were fake Republicans who came into the Republican Party to commit fraud to try and make it look like the Republicans as well do this. But there's only several small cases. 99% of all the cases, 99.9% of all the cases, only like 0.0002% that are Republicans, and those 0.002% that are Republicans are rhinos. They're not even real Republicans. They're infiltrators from the Democratic Party, long-standing prior Democratic parties, if you do the research into it. So this is scary when you realize, going back to 2008, going forward, going through the database here of these people who commit voter fraud, and like here, you look at one that's South Dakota, very little issues with it. It's a Republican state, very little issues. But when you look at something like, it's kind of like a swing state like Michigan, well, you got 2 pages. I mean, pretty big, but Michigan's mostly usually a Republican, but you have cases here. But when you look at these people, they're all Democrats. All the Democrats are the ones committing fraud in all the state elections, all over the place. All these ones here, they're all, look at who these people are. Go to the site and then look up the people and look at their background. They're all freaking Democrats. The Democrats, I can't believe that the media is saying there's no voter fraud, but yet near every state that we're having issues with, if you click on it, there's 2-3 pages of voter fraud convicted people who were convicted and charged with voter fraud since the 2016 election, going back all the way to 2008 elections. And like I say, it goes back even further, the records, and throughout all of it, throughout all of our history as a nation, 244 years of history, 99% of the people committing voter fraud in our country throughout our history is Democrats. But yet, the media refuses to say anything about this. If you were to listen to the media, you were to look at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and hear about what's going on with all these talking heads, you would think, well, we got the most secure system in the world. But it's a lie. It's a total lie. This is what I don't get. Everybody, like right now you have Facebook talking about fact checkers. Their fact checkers are fact checking everything. Fact checkers are jumping all over people. But yet, in Facebook's very own claims that it's putting out is a lie. And if the fact checkers would have fact checked it like I'm doing, they would realize they're lying. They're posting false information on Facebook. Because every state in this union has voter fraud taking place. I mean, some not so much. Very little, but the states that are the ones that have the issues right now. Like if we look at the states that are having a problem, like Georgia, look at Georgia. Georgia's got 2 full pages of issues going on. Very heavily Democratic state, and the majority of people involved in the Georgia election corruption cases where they've been charged are all people who are Democrats. It's funny because when you look at the media, the news outlets, the talking heads, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the owners, the founders, they're Democrats. And yet, all this fraud and corruption with the elections is taking place by Democrats. I would have to say, really, in all truth and honesty, we need to consider and look into the fact that these people are complicit with covering for the people committing the fraud. They are literally trying to deceive the American public about the truth of the amount of fraud that's going on. Facebook is complicit in literally lying right now on its own page. In every post it has like all this information. They've been posting stuff about how secure it is, how it's very rare, this, that, and everything. And he's a Democrat. And he's a Democrat being complicit with that of literally, when we look at the election maps here, of voter fraud across the country in the last just 12 years, you realize literally thousands of people have been committed for voter fraud who are all Democrats. So is Mark Zuckerberg complicit with this corruption and fraud? I mean, obviously, he's trying to cover up for them. He's hiding the truth. He's now politically a pundit. He's trying to make the Democratic Party look like saints. He's denying any of this even happened. But yet, go here to the site and you will see thousands and thousands of committed cases of voter fraud involving literally thousands of Democrats. Thousands of Democrats. 99.9% of all voter fraud is committed by Democrats within Democratic-controlled districts and states. Isn't that something? Well, you know, when you ask yourself why, I just want to hear another one. Michigan man facing felony charges for voter fraud, AG says. This was on November 13th. In Canton Township, man is facing felony charges for filling out and signing and submitting his daughter's ballot. There was others involved with this. We're going to go here. We're going to look here. You got Texas. AG accuses county official, 3 others of election fraud and mail-in ballot scheme. This just took place. This was September. Okay, this is another thing. Like I say, when you look, this is September. This is another thing what I'm trying to make the point about how far back they were already planning to commit fraud. These people were caught back in September of 2020, planning on like racketeering an idea, like propagating an idea then to commit fraud, and they got caught early on. I mean, these people have been planning this for months. Donald Trump is telling the truth, and Twitter, Facebook, and the talking heads on the news are lying. They're lying to the public right now, and the evidence is showing it's a fact. They're lying because I'm showing you the facts right now. And like I say, you look here, this is in September of 2020 that these people were busted with mail-in ballot scheme, okay? So, I mean, it's pretty clear. We all know the Democrats were pushing for this mail-in ballot thing with the virus. This is what they wanted. Now, when you ask yourself, like, today I talk to youth, and I see so many people right now that are like, oh, yeah, come on, you can't, it's on the news, they wouldn't lie on TV, these are reporters, they did their homework, it's been fact-checked by Facebook, they wouldn't be saying this if Facebook knew it wasn't the truth. This is what people are saying. But what I'm going to show you is a video that's on YouTube. And this video here on YouTube, right, is one that I want you to pay close attention to. Because understand, this is the fact. This is a fact I'm going to tell you right now. The news reporters that you're watching on the news are not real reporters. Who these people are talking heads. They're actors, okay? And they're actors who are picked by depending on what the response is through like a Nielsen rating system, to where they ask people who's the most likable person. And they find a face to match the community of its viewers, and with a personality that people like, who's a very good script reader and an actor, and they pop him on there and they call him a newscaster. But he's just an actor who reads scripts. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you evidence beyond disputable fact. Okay, it's an undisputable fact of evidence that the majority of people across this country on the news outlets between city levels everywhere are nothing but paid actors who sit there and read a script and in truth have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And when you realize how propagated the whole thing is, how they're propagating the dialogue and the mindset to the public of what they want the public to believe nationwide, it's very, very scary. But here's the fact. Let's take a quick watch on this.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble-driven, irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
the sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
As you can see there, that's real. That's real. Understand, if you were to watch, you don't realize it. You think what you're seeing on your news is a local reporter who's gone out and he's the only one. You don't realize they're all reading the same script across the country in all the different major cities across the country. They're all reading the same script. These are not real reporters. These are actors. that just suit the public's desire to what they want to see. They go by what the ratings are, with what people say. They do like a Nielsen's rating to find out what personality and look people like, and that's the person that they look to match to that, and that person's a good script reader. And as you can see in what we just showed you, they're all reading the same script, okay? And they're all propagating a lie to the public, especially being right now they're just telling you that many social media outlets, they're admitting most social media outlets are propagating a lie to the public. And it's the very social media telling you that is actually guilty of doing that. That's what they're doing. I mean, it's just scary. Let's finish out this.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 As you can see, even in that last one, you can tell it's a script reading. But here's the other thing. Like, I just did a video, Republican versus Democracy, which is very important that you understand that they're trying to indoctrinate the American posterity and the American people into thinking that America is a democracy, when in fact America is a republic. Now, within the functionings and the mechanics, like I say in my last video, which I made, if you want to go watch that, Democracy and Republic, the difference between a democracy and a republic is something majorly important that we can never forget as the American people. It's called authoritarianism. You see, in a democracy, the authority rests with that of the entrusted and elected government. All the components of the functioning of government, how it's assembled, its departments, what have you, between a democracy and a republic are the same as far as functioning and its departments, titles, and what have you. And even its process is through elections. But the big difference is, in a democracy, once the government is elected, the government is the authority over the people. In a republic, the people maintain the authority unto themselves, and the authority given to the government is only entrusted to them by our consent, and we can take that authority away from them. In a democracy, you can't do that. There's a big difference between a republic and a democracy, and it's within authoritarianism. You see, in a republic, a true republic is the people. And the people are the highest of authority and power within its government. It's a self-governing nation of the people, for the people, by the people. And the entrusted government only exists by the people's consent and only has the authority the people consent to it to have. Its powers and authority are consented to and can be taken by the people. If they act outside of what the people consent, the people can strip them of their power and position of elected position. This cannot happen in a democracy. In a democracy, once the people elect the government is the head of authority over all that the people can and can't do. People have no more say. That's the big difference. Authoritarianism. You see, and we can't forget that. But yet these people are lying to the American people, trying to tell us we're a democracy. And many people are making that mistake because, in truth, the operation of process of government of a democracy and a republic are very much the same. The order of it, like I said, the organization of it, the departments of it, the way it functions, the way it processes, the way it does rulings, all these processes and all, they're very, very similar. But the major difference of what's so important is that in the democracy, the government is the authority over the people. In a republic, the people are the authority over the government. That's the big, big difference that we can never forget. That's what makes us a republic. A republic is of the people. We are a government of the people, for the people, by the people. We don't have an authoritarian government over us. We are the authority over our consented to government, which is there to serve us. Unlike a democracy, and where the government is the authority over the people, and it is there to do its own will, by its own desires, and the people are subject to the government. There's a big, big difference between a democracy and a republic. We are not a democracy. We are a republic, and people need to get this right because it's a big, big mistake. But let's finish out listening to this video.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 I'm pretty sure everybody now gets the idea of just how clear
engaging content using
it is of how corrupt. What's dangerous to our nation is this fake news, this incredibly fake news of a bunch of worthless talking heads who are nothing but actors propagating lies to the American public openly on the airwaves day in and day out. is what's dangerous to America is educated idiots like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, who is out there plastering things all over, indoctrinating the posterity. You know, right now, Mark Zuckerberg, in my opinion, is no different than Hitler with the youth groups in the 1920s, because he's targeting mostly the posterity, the youth of this country, with the indoctrination he's pumping out, while he's covering for the corruption and the mass corruption and fraud that's taken place in elections by Democrats across this country throughout the whole 244 years of our American history. The 99% of that fraud and corruption within elections is taking place by Democrats, of which Mark Zuckerberg is clearly a Democrat, trying to hide the truth about his own party, using and propagating his method of use through his own social media platform, of which he has literally the majority of all online audience is on Facebook. He is lying to the American people, covering up corruption in elections, literally, intentionally, knowingly, as a Democrat himself. We can't trust these Democrats. That becomes self-evident, and that's what I'm saying. When you look and you realize, I'm going to post links to this, and you look and you do the background investigation on these people that are convicted, they're all freaking Democrats. And it's disgusting, the corruption, the fake news, the propagation that's taking place with all these fake talking heads. It is literally all fake. It's disgustingly fake, and I've had it. And I'll tell you what, we're going to leave off with what's taking place right now. Today is going to be a major event in Washington, D.C. Unlike Antifa or Black Lives Matter, who show up in these little groups, you're going to see how many true patriot Republicans of the true republic of these United States exist this weekend in Washington, D.C. Just like you did on the 15th of last month, when literally hundreds of thousands of true patriot Republicans showed up in Washington, D.C. But one thing I'd like to say further about the Washington, D.C., you also had a lot of Dinos. A Dino is a Democrat in name only. That's a Democrat who's a Democrat because he bought the propagation that the Democratic Party is some kind of social warrior for immigrants and minorities, when in truth, when you look into the facts of things, or what is going to be on my next video, I plan on releasing several videos this weekend of all what's explained the authority of the American people in relation to our government, and as well the truth about the Democratic Party and who they are today. And also to prove the point about this fallacy of some kind of party switch is what's in the defense of all these Dinos. Every time they run back to their Democratic heads and they say, hey, you know, this guy pointed out so much about us being racist and us being the founders of the Ku Klux Klan and destroying this nation and voter fraud. What do I say? And they go back and they tell him, well, you tell him, you know what? The Democrats flip parties. They have like several different points they try to claim party switches, but the last one was Lyndon B. Johnson back in the 1960s. But we're going to debunk all of that in one of my videos coming up. So I want everybody to pay attention to that, because these videos will be being released throughout this weekend. And of course, I would say to YouTube, pay very close attention to the warning that was posted in the beginning of this video before you attempt to try and remove any of my videos. And I also would like to say to the founders of Facebook and YouTube, understand, you will be held accountable when all things come down to it. People involved with being complicit and deceiving the American public and causing the issues or problems that we're going to have long-term effects for probably a generation is going to be destroyed of American posterity. That of the American people's children, deprived of their pursuit of happiness, their right to liberty and freedom in this country, by your propagation, by your deception, by your actions in depriving the public, the American people, of their right to true knowledge and understanding of the truth by the facts, by your blocking this stuff and attempting to defend the people doing the corruption of your own political party and the Democrats. You will be held accountable. And you better pray a civil war don't break out, because in a war, there is no law and there is no rules of engagement. And I can guarantee you one thing, and knowing that what you are doing, Mark Zuckerberg, and you, the head of Twitter and all the social media outlets, with your propagation and the lies you're telling, you're putting that threat my grandchildren's future, their pursuit of happiness, their freedom, their liberty, and their protection as Americans. And I'm going to tell you what, civil war breaks out, you're all on my list. I'm coming for you. You can damn well believe I'm coming for you to hold you accountable. And when you're found guilty, you will be charged and when you're found guilty, you will receive the death penalty for freaking treason to this country. Believe me, I'll see to that. If you're found guilty, you will serve the death penalty to this country. Believe me, you will be made an example of, because people like you are damn disgraceful for what you're doing with the propagation and the lies that you're pumping out to the posterity and twisting the minds of the youth in this country, and the damage you're causing is just goddamn disgraceful. But with that said, I'm going to leave everybody out. You take a look at this video. You take a look at it. I'll include links to everything here. But as I said, when we look through this video again, I'm just going to go over real quick, and we're going to take a quick browse over what we just did. Multiple cases right now taking place from the 2020 election of arrests across this country in most of the swing states that the news is not talking about, Facebook's not talking about, social media is not talking about. But there are, and like you can see in some of these, this here involves 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications filed by a pair in Hawthorne elections. Okay? And there's others that are literally in the thousands, submitted thousands of fraudulent, right here, a pair charged with voter fraud allegedly submitted thousands of fraudulent applications on behalf of homeless people. Thousands. Okay, when you combine right now all the voter fraud that took place in the 2020 elections within the swing states, we're talking hundreds of thousands of illegal votes that are in question. But yet, even with the Supreme Court right now, many of the state legislators, to show you how corrupt the entire system is, as well, I just want to make a point. There is many rhinos, what's a Republican in name only, and as well many just fake Republicans. People who are nothing but goddamn elected, worthless, paper-brain idiots, failed attorneys, and losers who are just a disgrace to this goddamn country in both parties. But granted, at least the Republicans aren't doing anything as far as corruption with fraud going on in the elections. But they're just as bad because, you know what, they're complicit in sitting there and not knowing the truth of what they should know and doing the right thing to stop these things. They just are educated idiots who are doing nothing, and they're a disgrace to the true Republican founding principles of this nation. Just a disgrace, the ones who sit there and are complicit with it. But I just wanted to say, you know, there is right now literally many, many cases going on from the 2020 presidential election race, and where people are being arrested and charged with corruption fraud. I'll include links to this right here, and then like I say, you go to this one here, it shows you the amount since the 2016 election forward, 1,125 convictions on Democrats. All 99.9% of the people convicted of voter fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and acts of committing fraud in the elections of the United States, 99.9% are freaking Democrats. Okay? And then who's controlling the media telling us right now there's no voter fraud? Democrats. And then like I say, when you look at this one here, this whole video here, understand that these people know what they're doing. They know. And it's disgraceful. It's just totally disgraceful. So I just want to leave off with that, and you know, everybody, I want to say, everybody keep an eye on what's happening right now. Going to be taking place in Washington this weekend. I pray that everyone that's involved in the Washington event is safe, and that everything goes as smooth as it did last month. And mind you too, everyone that's involved in Washington, and as well everyone across the country, we need to have these kind of showings as well at all the state capitals come Monday, because come Monday the electors will be casting their vote. I would like to give notice right now to all electors. What I would advise to the state governors and the electors is to refuse to cast any votes, refuse to even form an electoral college with the amount of corruption that is self-evident, not only in this election but clearly all past elections. And it's time we get these matters straight so that the American people's voice is truly heard with integrity in this country, and our nation is no longer going to be under the rule of the goose of this corrupt, disgusting government that we clearly need to amend and fix, because we have some major issues going on. But I would advise that you not cast any votes, nor take any part in forming an electoral college for this election. Let the Supreme Court pass this off to the Senate. Let the Senate handle the election of this president, because obviously corruption is beyond the measure. And any of you who do act in complicit with this, Republican or Democrat, I don't give a damn who you are, it will lead to a civil war if things do not. I'm assuring you right now, the American people are ready to take their place. And I'm going to do a video on that, our right of authority to do what's coming. Okay, and understand this, anyone who's complicit in this corruption that takes part in it and tries to do this is attempting a coup, an overthrow in this nation right now through that corruption, and it's treason. You will be held accountable. Every single one of you within every goddamn state, I assure you, we the American people will be coming for you, and you will be held accountable, and you will be made a public example of, and to make sure that forward our posterity is safe, and that we set an example that makes clear to anyone in our elected government, don't you ever, ever try to corrupt our elections or our system of government or our nation and put us and our posterity at threat. Don't ever do it. we will make an example of you. I would advise you all take that advice and take it seriously. Watch what happens today, everybody in Washington, D.C. God bless all the true patriot Americans that are going to be in Washington, D.C. today. Thank God and praise all the men and women across this country who are true American Republic patriots. I just want you all to know, I'm with you. We're all together in this. We're going to do this, and we're going to be fine. We are not going to lose our country. That's a goddamn fact. God bless America. God bless the Republic. God bless our President Donald Trump. And God bless every ethical, moral person of integrity within our government that is doing the right thing. God be with us all. Thank you all for watching my video. I pray everybody have a great God bless weekend, and I'll be seeing you all with more videos to come throughout this weekend, and I'm looking forward to Monday. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you again for watching my video. God bless.